All right, hi you guys. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Thank you guys for joining us, and also thank you to our panelists who are going to speak today for participating. So this is our first quarterly webinar, something new we're doing this year for NCHV, where we plan to just kind of bring you guys topics that you wanted to hear more about after feedback from our conference. David, if you will flip us to the next slide. I'm going to give a couple of intro points and then go through some housekeeping stuff while we let the remaining people log in. But for those of you who are not familiar with NCHV, we have a lot of different roles, but one of the primary things I do is kind of highlight best practices in all things housing across the country. And then it's my job to share what we find bright spots with other communities and kind of work to highlight issues that veterans have communicated to us. And help communities find solutions for whatever obstacles they're facing. This webinar, as I was saying, came from feedback from our conference. After our first virtual conference last year, we had a lot of people who basically said that they wanted more opportunities to talk about, issues with finding housing, working with landlords, operating their different programs and stuff. So this is a follow-up to y'all's feedback. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about landlord partnerships and the lease-up process. We're going to be talking about creating these relationships, finding different housing options for veterans, and using multiple different housing programs to get veterans into housing. And we'll also be talking about housing barriers and overcoming those barriers, especially in light of COVID. Towards the very end of this webinar, we're going to have a 15-minute window for Q&A. So if you guys will send your questions in as we go through the presentation, you'll see on the right-hand side of your computer, you should see a control screen, and there is a chat box where you can send in comments, questions to me and our panelists, and we'll go through them towards the end. Before we get started, I wanted to do a quick poll just to see, for the people this applies to, where you guys are having issues working with landlords. So everybody should see the poll that just popped up. We'll give about a minute or so to answer this question, but especially thinking about the last year, where has you or your organization struggled to maintain or create new landlord relationships and, successfully lease veterans? So is it in finding landlords, making initial contact? Is it educating landlords on your housing programs and successfully communicating the programs that you guys work with? Is it nurturing your existing relationships or building off existing housing placements to find new opportunities? So if you guys will take a couple of seconds to answer this question, and we will use this to guide conversation towards the end of the webinar and the Q&A session. I'll give you guys about 10 more seconds to get your answers in. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll, David. And then I'm going to give both of our panelists a second or two to introduce themselves. They will do a little introduction towards the beginning of their presentations. So I'm Jasmine. I work for NCHV. A couple of you guys have probably seen me before. And I work as a housing program associate, so I do everything housing related. And we have two great panelists for you guys today, some of the best examples I've seen in the last year of, their housing practices and stuff. So we have Trevor and Kara. I'll give them a minute to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trevor Thundershield. I'm the Owner Support Supervisor at Home Inc. here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I oversee our owner support department, which includes our landlord outreach, our housing location services, and a lot of our recruitment and attention of landlords. So I'm here to support landlords. I'm here to maintain those relationships, and that's what I do all day, every day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Green, and I'm the project coordinator for the specialist team in the Veterans Division at Friendship Place in Washington, D.C. I recently got promoted from housing specialist, and I worked as a case manager for a few years in the D.C. area, providing wraparound services in housing. I am currently working on my degree in counseling psychology to move forward and counsel veterans that are experiencing homelessness. My major passion and a part of my everyday is to make sure that the relationships between case managers, their participants, and landlords are successful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both again for participating. One quick thing I forgot to mention in the opening slides was we are going to have a couple of landlord-related products for you guys. You probably weren't able to click the link that appeared on the first screen, but I'll post them in the chat as we go through. And Trevor, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. So landlord partnerships and lease ups. Next slide, David. So I just want to start off with a quick introduction of Home Inc. So if you don't know who we are a permanent housing provider here in Phoenix. We are actually a subcontractor to a lot of the funded grantees. Our partnership model is unique in the fact that we only administer the landlord, the rental assistance and other housing related program operations. And our partners, they provide all the supportive services. So our roots are very much from the PHA world, but we are not social workers, case managers, or even public housing officials. We are real estate practitioners. We're a licensed real estate entity, and while we do not provide property management or development services, we have and we understand those models. We understand the Arizona Landlord Tenant Act, fair housing, reasonable accommodations, and we appreciate the business models of our landlords. We're committed to their success along with the success of all of our customers, which includes our participants, case managers, and our community partners for who we contract with. We've also been a member of the Arizona Multifamily Association for over 20 years. So we have that, we try to maintain those relationships as well. Next slide. Home operates permanent supportive housing programs, rapid rehousing, and other permanent housing programs for vulnerable individuals and families experiencing homelessness and housing instability. We also partner with the public housing authorities to provide lease-up services for housing programs designated for targeted populations and special needs households. Most relevant to this webinar is we do lease-up services for the city of Phoenix on their HUD-VASH program. So our job is just go out, help them find housing as soon as possible, do all the lease-up stuff. Then we turn the file over to the city of Phoenix, and then they take it over. They do the payments and all of that. Next slide. So the basics of landlord engagement. So we think of landlord engagement as a cumulative efforts of rental market research, outreach and education, recruitment, incentivization, and retention of landlords to expand housing opportunities for people experiencing homelessness. Housing search assistance includes the support provided to individuals and families to identify and secure affordable and accessible housing that meets their needs. Elements of the support might include transportation, information sharing about available rental opportunities in the community, accompaniment to view rental units, assisting with application for tenancy, advocating for reduced screening criteria, and ultimately successful lease execution and move-in. So some of the marketing techniques that we use, we are very big on social media. And, if you want to reach landlords nowadays, it's 21st century, social media is the way to go. So tap into that resource, be active. Of course, we still do the classic door-to-door, the cold calling. We do have marketing material like door hangers and flyers. that we use while we're out in the community. Another thing we regularly do is we do blogs. We try to do these monthly. And this is just to update and educate our landlords on our processes internally, any changes that are happening, any new maybe laws that are coming out that may affect them that we can collaborate on. So this is just a way for us to maintain that communication, keep our landlords educated, and conduct that outreach. And of course, your regular email communications, and then landlord surveys are really, really helpful because you want to have the landlord voice in making the decisions that really impact them. Next slide. So speaking of landlord surveys, a few months back, we, together with our Rapid Rehousing Program service partners, we surveyed our landlord partners about financial and programmatic incentives to accept the Rapid Rehousing programs at their property. So the feedback they provided was critical in informing policy and funding decisions to create a new financial incentive for landlords, and this, like at the systems level. So we, after collaborating with our partners, reviewing the results, this is kind of the criteria that we came up with. So our landlord, they must be a new landlord who's never worked with rapid rehousing before, or they could be a landlord who, they modify their screening criteria to approve our clients when they previously would have been denied. So if they don't have any income, they have previous evictions, or criminal history. We work with our landlords. We try to advocate for their housing placement, and when landlords are willing to work with us and they modify their screening criteria, that definitely gets them approved. And then, of course, if they're just willing to reduce their rents below the market rate, or even to meet our tenants' budgets that they have. Markets right now are getting out of control. Rents are skyrocketing, but incentives like this, like signing bonuses, can actually help kind of level that playing field. All right, next slide. So another thing we do internally is we have a housing location specialist on staff. This person's job is pretty much strictly to go out there, recruit new landlords. They research the rental market to identify vacancies. And a special note, this person is a licensed real estate agent. So he speaks the lingo of our landlords and owners and property managers. So they can kind of connect on that level. And of course, since we are a real estate entity, we do have access to the MLS, so we can identify all those off-market rentals and educate landlords on how to, the benefits of our programs and how they can diversify their rental portfolios. So he's out in the community all day, every day. He's on the phone, providing outreach, education. When we do have landlords who may be interested, on our website, we do have a feature called book an orientation. So this is used so that they can schedule a time on his calendar for a quick orientation, for some Q&A, to better understand our programs. So that's been really, really helpful. And of course, he does take participants out, helps negotiate that screening criteria. He assesses their barriers, of course, tries to find appropriate units and locations that the tenants want to be in. And of course, he coordinates with the supportive services partners, keeps them updated on the status of all the participants he's working with, on new landlords that may be, that he has recruited. And we track all that via our new housing search platform called PadMission. So on our website, landlords can go to our website. There's a little button that says add units, and it'll take them right to our PadMission login. Next slide. Next slide, David. All right, so PadMission. You can actually move to the next slide. So Pad Mission, this is our web-based housing search platform. It was custom built by our CEO Mike Short and one of his partners, for the homeless services system, so they can coordinate and enhance their landlord engagement and housing search, their efforts, and have more of like a centralized landlord platform. So Pad Mission is like other online housing search services in that it allows landlords to list and market their properties to our prospective tenants. However, Pad Mission is different in the fact that it's a closed platform, and it's only available to our program participants, our case manager partners, and the landlords. So by using this system, we're able to reduce that competition with the general public. And Pad Mission also allows communities to coordinate housing location and search assistance at a systems level, which benefits the programs throughout their continuum of care and ending homelessness for individuals and families faster. It also helps our case managers and housing navigators assist their clients in securing housing so that they can focus on being the supports and the housing stability. Next slide. So, once you get logged in here, so like I said, landlords can list their available units. They can market their units that are available right now. This is a real-time system, so landlords you can only find them via search as far as the participants' case managers. You can only find them when they do have available units. So this is a big change from what we used to do. The old school way was to call landlords, every landlord that we know, ask if they have availability, put them on a spreadsheet, and it was so labor intensive and it took so much manpower that it just wasn't productive, it wasn't efficient. So this way we give the landlords control to list and market their properties. David, you can click ahead a little bit here. There you go. So when landlords do add their units here, if they update every day, they go to the top of the list of the first property that the participants and case managers see, which of course expedites their lease ups and minimizes their vacancy time. So landlords are able to lease up their units faster and reduce their marketing costs because this is free for them to list. And as for the tenants, they're able to filter out based on what program they're in, what city they want to live in, bedroom size, with their max rent. So they are able to use those advanced filters to better identify housing that meets their needs. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. All right, so the property listing. So just like any other website, provides all the information about the property. But when we designed this, we just wanted to have it reflect the current request for tenancy approval. So pretty much all the information here would be information that would directly translate into that RFTA. But there are photos in here. A lot of landlords, if they're individual units, a lot of times you'll be able to view the insides, the outsides. Some landlords are really detailed, so especially during times of COVID, this is very helpful when tenants can't, meet landlords on site. So at least they can view the photos of the unit, the condition. They can even see the area of town. We do have a map feature. Also, landlords are able to upload their applications and tenant screening criteria, so that when landlords do contact those landlords, they can get approved. They can just fill out that quick application and then send that digitally. And also one of the other features in here is that message box. So they can, type in a message, directly contact with those landlords. So they can, it's a lot more streamlined, easy communication. All right, next slide. All right, one more. There we go. All right, and you can click a couple times here, David, to bring up the rest of the information. So as far as our housing locators, which are us as the staff, we're the ones who are administering this. So we do have a host of reports and analytics in the platform to assist us in measuring our performance in the landlord engagement, unit availability, housing search, and lease-up tracking. So this is one of the little modules that's in there, is our landlord engagement progress report. So we can select a date range, see how we've performed over the past month. In this case, we've added 82 available units, which is good. But we can filter that out by programs, by size of units, by cities. So it's able to provide us an opportunity to better monitor our efforts and see where we need to redirect those efforts if need be. We're also working closely with our customers and end users to identify features, integrations, and analytics that further enhance our collective efforts to help people move from homelessness to housing in communities. So as our users, work in this platform, if there's something they'd like to see, it's easy enough for them to just hit, to send us a quick message, or even let us know what we can add to make this a more useful solution for them. So right now, our current reach, and this is just for Central Arizona. So right now we have about 3,000 housing participants in here, 600 case managers, over 500 property managers. And we average about 104 active properties. That represents, the 300 to 400 units that are available. Next slide, David. So technology is cool, Admission's awesome. But it all comes down to, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't have the processes in place, then it's not going to be helpful. So some operational goals you can look to help with your landlord retention and engagement is if you try to streamline and simplify your processes. So like most of our documents are on our website. So whenever landlords need them, if they need replacements, they can just go to our website. They're fillable PDFs. So if you could make your paperwork streamline, go digital, that would be awesome. Make sure you're able to inspect those units quickly, because that's one of the big things as far as that landlord look for is speed and responsiveness. So if they turn in a request for tenancy approval and it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get an inspection, they would probably prefer to move on. Whereas if you can inspect, have a good turnaround time with 1 to 2 days, then of course they're more willing to work with you based on that. Also, the speed of payments. If you can have all your payments via direct deposit, that's always best. That way it goes directly to the landlords. They can also receive an itemized breakdown of payments via email. Just makes it paperless, streamlined, fast, and of course support your participants. And when when there are landlord concerns, make sure that you are responding to them, following up, answering your phones, returning calls, just all that basic customer service that landlords want. They don't want to be running around to 5 different people. They want to know who to go to. So maybe on your websites, if you can post a directory and even direct our landlords where to go, who to contact, that's definitely helpful. And finally, risk mitigation. If most time landlords, one of the things that makes our programs attractive is that we do have that damage claim and vacancy loss program, where if there are damages or if there's unpaid rent, eviction costs, stuff like that, at least they know that we have their back. Next slide. And finally, my main emphasis is always partnerships. So be a true partner. Far too often we have this us versus them mentality where that shouldn't be. So just get rid of that mentality. We are partners in housing. Without the landlords, we won't have houses. We won't have units. So we need to be partners. We need to be friends. We need to be collaborators. So few strategies you could implement is try to build and strengthen those relationships with your landlord associations. So be a member, be active. Through there you can connect with your regional property managers, the decision makers at the management company level, and then use their marketing network to further, expand your outreach and education. The phrase is always, it's not, it's always who you know, and that's how you get successful. So just, listen to your landlords, utilize those relationships, and really try to understand their goals, needs, and priorities, because we are, as humans, we are complex beings. We all have different needs and we all have different priorities. So if you can identify those, at least you can find those mutual beneficial opportunities to further enhance housing opportunities for our participants. And that is it for me. So if you'd like to contact me, feel free. I'm on the website, homeinc.com. That's my direct phone line. And also at the bottom of our main page, there is a little section that you can enter your email address. You can select which category, as far as whether you're a landlord, participant, or just a friend and fan. And you can receive a lot of those blogs and email communications regularly as well. So thank you for your time, and I'll pass it off to Kara.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So again, my name is Kara, and I am at Friendship Place in DC. And I will sort of discuss on my end and how we develop relationships between the case managers and our community, landlords, and other providers. You can go to the next slide. So who we are, where we serve, the eligibility, referral process, all of these things are extremely important to understand in the beginning, and what we do and how our specialist team supports the case managers and the participants, and what that type of collaboration has really helped us become pretty successful even during COVID. The vacancy search has moved 100% online through different websites, social media, and just the continuing landlord engagement is also extremely important. So I would like to discuss that as well. Next slide. So to give you a little bit of background of Friendship Place, it was established in 1991, serving the Washington, D.C. region. We are known to empower individuals that are at risk of homelessness or currently experiencing homelessness, and to work with them to rebuild their lives. We offer an effective model for addressing homelessness with innovative and customized programs. We are known to have a lasting impact on the community in a positive manner. We offer a person-centric and individualized to meet the needs and goals of individuals, families, and just other people in the community that are experiencing homelessness, such as veterans. We make sure that we understand exactly what that individual is going through, what caused them to be homeless, get some background information on where they're staying, and to really understand what their goals are moving forward. It's just really important to allow individuals to tell you what they want, what they need, and then they work with their case manager to accomplish those goals. Friendship Place provides outreach, hospitality, healthcare, case management, housing, job placement services, and advocacy. The two divisions at Friendship Place that work with rapid rehousing are the Veterans First division and Neighbors First. Rapid rehousing is a fast-paced housing program. It happens very quickly, and we provide light touch case management services. Those referrals will come from community partners, coordinated entry, the VA, Veteran Affairs, various shelters, other case managers in the community, and veterans and their families as well. Next slide. We serve counties in Maryland and Virginia and also DC. And as you see, Maryland, Frederick County, Prince George's County, Montgomery County. And in Virginia, Arlington County, City of Alexandria, Fairfax County, Prince William County, and Loudoun County. Each of them are very different, and just their laws, their process, the culture So we really work hard in building those relationships in those communities and understanding how they differ from, Maryland to DC to Virginia. Next slide. So to go into a little bit of the eligibility, the veteran must prove that they served 1 day of active duty service. So that could be, for an example, if someone is in the reserves and for whatever reason they were needed for 1 day, they become activated, and it could just be 24 hours. And then they also have to be under the 50% AMI, and for a household of one, that is 44,100 gross total income. The outreach team, they do really well in putting together the math and making sure that that is all set for intake. Any discharge status except bad conduct resulting from a general court martial or dishonorable. So again, we have ways in verifying their discharge status if they do not have their DD 214. We also work with them in trying to gather that information so that when they go, if they go into intake with the case manager, that is already set. The veteran must be literally homeless or at risk of losing their housing. And with that, the outreach team gathers a homeless verification form, and it shows where they're staying, the dates, is within the next 30 days, or were they living in, staying in their car the night before. And that can come from the shelter, if they're staying at like a transitional housing program, or someone in the community that can verify that information. Next slide. The referral process, it has changed a little bit since COVID, but the intake screening line, the number is right here on the slide, and that automatically goes to a voicemail, and our outreach team, they're amazing. They call back within 1 business day, and they complete the screening from there. We also have an email inbox where a lot of our phone calls will get routed to that. We'll be able to read the voicemails, and also other community partners can email us referrals as well. We used to have walk-in appointments at the VA's CRRC, that's located in Franklin Street Northeast every Wednesday, but right now we are not doing in-person outreach. So a lot of our community partners have come together to develop, a vacancy report, and we communicate with them and ensuring that that veteran is referred to the right place. Next slide. So supportive services is just really important in any time. Our case management services can include things such as, looking for housing, if they need assistance and some type of utility assistance in the community, we also offer that as well. We provide healthcare referrals, or we can also connect them to our healthcare navigator. And what she does is she makes sure that the veteran, if they need something from the VA, or if they want to change their discharge status, she can help with like different medical things with providers in the community. Also offer daily living referrals, personal financial planning. We have a budget sheet that we go through with our veterans if they seem to need a little bit of assistance on how to plan their bills. Maybe they need some type of credit counseling, and so forth. We also offer transportation services, payee referrals, and again, housing counseling services is great to just counsel participants in how a lease goes, how the application process goes, how they can, maybe when they run out of room and they have roommates, how to sort of live with other adults that they don't know, and other community referrals as needed. Our team is amazing in connecting with the community and the DMV. We are always trying to network, whether it's over the phone, whether it's, you know, an email, on social media, and also just attending webinars and sharing information like email and phone number. Next slide. So the temporary financial services, since rapid rehousing is a temporary time-limited subsidy program, we are able to provide these services to landlords, moving companies, and utility companies. Again, my team is amazing and trying to find other resources in the community where they could get other assistance with, you know, like their utilities or a moving truck. But we pay very close attention to everybody's cap, which has been sort of suspended right now because of COVID, but we still have a cap that we have to go by. And we also have financial assistance. It's case by case. Nothing can ever be guaranteed. And again, that's why it's really important for us to connect our veterans to other resources in the community, just in case we're not able to provide that assistance, or if they want to, or they need that assistance once they're exited from our program, they know where to go. Next slide. So housing specialist, that was my position before my promotion. The biggest part is creating partnerships with landlords and management companies throughout the COCs that we serve. And the major thing that I do is provide education and resources to the case managers, the participants, and landlords. The education to case managers and participants, for an example, can be legal education. A lot of times it can get kind of tricky understanding all of the legal terms and everything that happens varying from one county to the next. You know, Prince George's County, legally they're different than, you know, Alexandria City in Virginia. So that's one of the major things that I've had to really focus on, especially during our state of emergency. It's just making sure that, you know, case managers have those legal resources and education, as well as participants, and sometimes landlords as well. I find a lot of joy in answering landlord questions. They always are asking us about our process, you know, how successful are we? You know, where do our referrals come from, and just how to work with individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And a lot of times I tell them, just like how you would, you know, you would work with any other tenant. And I also like to educate landlords on just, you know, sometimes a lot of people, they don't have like the resources and the education for like credit checks and criminal history. And so I feel like it's just really important to build that connection and educate landlords on the different types of communities that they will be working with. You know, again, I serve as a resource to case managers, and I assist case managers whenever they have an issue with, well, not, you know, a quote unquote issue with the participants and or landlords. Sometimes it could just be a simple miscommunication. Sometimes it could be as simple as, you know, sending over a document on their behalf, but making sure that, again, that education is ongoing, the support and communicating between the case manager and the landlord on in a timely manner, and just, again, being the landlord's friend, their partner, and making sure that they understand that the housing specialist is here for both sides to bridge that gap. Next slide, please. So the landlord tenant issues is a major concern that has definitely gotten a lot more obvious during COVID. A lot of the landlord tenant rights have changed due to COVID-19. And so the biggest goal for a housing specialist is just to make sure that we educate both ends and provide those resources like legal aid to sort of lower the anxiety of landlords making the money every month, you know, making sure they're getting their rent, and the participants being able to have, you know, an ease they're easing their mind about like getting treated a certain way during a state of emergency. So I will provide, legal resources, and also just the housing counseling services. The application process is already intimidating. So what I will do is kind of go through different leases with case managers if they have a question in that lease before the participant signs the lease. And if I have some questions or feel like something needs to be changed, or if I know that something's not going to hold up in the court, just in case that does come to that point, I will make sure that I connect them with either some type of legal source in the community, or I will look up that information myself. I also work really closely with case managers in brainstorming ideas, working with participants that have certain barriers. A lot of times participants will come to us and say, I don't want to live in, this community because of X, Y, and Z, and that is okay. And they might have, very low income and something on their credit. Okay, so how can we work with those barriers? Are you eligible for maybe a voucher? Do we have extra funds? And is it legal in that county to maybe pay a double security deposit? How can we really work with that participant's barriers and get them housed successfully? Longevity in housing is very, very important. So when I get a referral from a case manager, and I will thank my case management experience for this, I discuss specifics. I want to know, is this participant a smoker? Will that be a problem? Does this participant need to be next to a metro stop or a bus stop? And I do the Google search and look at the maps. Has this participant had an issue in the past of paying certain bills on time? How can we work with them and knowing every single month at this date, make sure you go and you either set up your direct deposit if you haven't already. Where do you need to go to get a check to write out a payment for your landlord? I like those specifics and many more, so that when we connect the participant with the landlord, the chances of that not working out is a little bit lower. I also like the participant to know their rights and responsibilities. A lot of times, again, this can be intimidating process and time for them. And so if they know what their rights are and their responsibilities are, that could ease their anxiety while they sign their lease. Next slide. So the vacancy search has changed a little bit. Before, it was really in the community, driving around, looking at, if there's like a, for rent sign out front, going to different landlord group meetings, hosting landlord meetings at the office. But in the last year, Go Section 8 has been my go-to. I really like Go Section 8 because the landlords on there are typically either private landlords or landlords that have a background or information already about subsidy programs. I also look up on Zumper.com, apartments.com. Facebook Marketplace is great. There are a lot of like rooms for rent on there. Facebook Marketplace is also great for private landlords, basement vacancies throughout the area, and the Housing Authority websites. And while I am, speaking to these landlords, I like to discuss what are their goals? What do they want to see happen long-term with their unit? What are their, their rules? What's their vision for a tenant? What's the monthly rent that you would like to make? Could you include the utilities? And how our program can be benefit to the landlord, involving just like teamwork and that education. Next slide. So the housing resource document is a great document that I developed this past year. I like to make sure that I collect all the necessary information that the case managers can just go online and look and see what type of listings are there. Is this a new or an old landlord? Is it a private property? Where is it located? And I try to give just the necessary information because case managers already have so much going on. So the housing resource document is just a great way for everyone to go online and look and see what's available, and the basic information. If they need anything more, communication is big for me. So I'm always open to text messages, emails, and just collaborating with that case manager and getting those leads out. Next slide. Continuing landlord engagement for me is really, really important. I always love sending out the landlord surveys and the thank you emails. I also have landlords that will assist me in networking. So they'll connect, their friends in the community to our program. They'll refer other landlords as well. And just that the ongoing communication, the immediate crisis resolution, if there's an issue, we respond very fast. We just want to make sure that that communication turnaround is quick, it's clear, it's respectful, and it is right where we can kind of mediate and make sure that both the landlord and the participant are taken care of at the end of the day. Next slide. And there are other SSVF programs in the community that we also work really closely with, and we make sure that we continue the education between each agency. I have worked with other housing specialists and case managers in the area to bounce ideas off of each other and send leads in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Next slide. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting the community, veterans. It's really, really important. This is my contact information. If anyone has any follow-up questions, or maybe they want to know a little more detail of how I educate landlords, and I also educate participants and case managers on credit counseling, criminal history, and landlord-tenant laws. I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you, both Trevor and Kara. There's a lot of information. We got a couple of good questions, and then we're going to go over the results from the very beginning, the poll that we put out, to kind of guide some of the discussion here. 1 second. So thank you guys for sending in questions as we went through the presentation. Where to start? Okay, so the poll in the beginning, a lot of you guys did answer, and the top 2 answers, to refresh you guys' memory: finding landlords and making the initial contact with new landlords. I think you guys both covered it pretty well in your presentations about how you guys are searching, but I want to break it down a little bit further for how exactly you guys are finding landlords. So the very first step, are you just going to Google and starting the search like anybody would, looking for an apartment and typing in like landlords near me that are this price range and below, or how exactly are you starting? You gave us a couple of good websites, Kara, and then Trevor, I know you guys have pad missions, so you add most of your landlords and like compile all the information there. And you did explain, leaving the signs on the doors and doing a little bit of outreach in person and then also virtually. But how are you guys actually starting the landlord search?
So we've been in this community for 25 plus years. So a lot of times we just leverage our current relationships with landlords to acquire more landlords. A lot of it's word of mouth, but also like I kind of stated, because we're involved in a lot of the landlord associations, we use those networks to get the word out about HomeInc, about our programs, about how especially during COVID right now, it's been really beneficial because a lot of landlords themselves are concerned about the eviction moratoriums, not getting their rent paid. But when they hear about our programs and stable income that it can provide, it becomes very attractive. So so start your search. Definitely use the websites that are available out there, but also reach out to your community partners, maybe community legal services, or even find out who the latest or who the eviction lawyer is, who's connected to all the landlords in your community. They're always really good resources as well.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback off of that. New landlord searches for me, I am very specific as to how I narrow down the search. So for example, Go Section 8 again is probably the first website that I always use. And I make sure that I am very specific on, you know, how many rooms, the county, and the price cap. And then I kind of go from there and looking at the photos. And sometimes you can kind of tell if it's like a big property company, like a major apartment complex, or if it's a private landlord. So I really pay attention to the photos, and just like the landlord language and whatever they have listed in their description. I will email them or I will call them and sort of ask them to, you know, clarify of what they're looking for. And I think that's just really important to then continue that landlord engagement, because, you know, you pay attention to the details. You make sure that like you're understanding what the landlord is looking for in their vision and how it aligns with our program and with the participants. So I don't typically do Google searches that often, but like Facebook Marketplace surprisingly has given me a lot of good leads, and Go Section 8. Those are like my two like favorite websites right now.
All right. We've got a couple of questions relating to specific barriers. So I have one that just popped up about, you know, working with veterans that have tiered offenses. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe criminal records, or there was a question about how do you get landlords to be willing to work with people who are exiting homelessness that have a risk of being homeless again, maybe in the future, and other barriers that pop up on like a background search or credit check. How are you specifically asking landlords to consider applicants that, you know, maybe have a bunch of red flags up front?
All right, I'll jump in.
I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so our housing location specialist, so he works one-on-one with a lot of our most like hard to house tenants. And the best way to get over those barriers is really to connect the landlord, you know, explain the situation, because a lot of times felony accounts, there's always reasons for it. You can, you know, just, you know, explain kind of the situation, explain the supports that they have, you know, especially, you know, I know Kara, she explained all her supports that they have around for their tenants. We have our partners who provide all the supports. So if you can just reassure the tenant or the landlord, just say, hey, give them a chance. We got their back. We got your back. You know, let's just give it a chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the specialist team, we're lucky to have an employment specialist and a benefit specialist on top of a housing specialist. And one of the things that I discuss is it takes the education, right? So what we do is if we have a participant who is considered hard to house, or they have something going on in their background, we will connect them with possibly like our benefit specialist or our housing specialist and see how they could check, you know, like their credit check. A lot of times people don't know how to check their credit check, their credit report. So they don't know what's on their credit report. And so we would kind of counsel them and how to work with that. A lot of times, just bringing more of like the humanistic view, like just kind of educating landlords on some people have these supports and some people do not. And now that we are providing these supports moving forward, then it should be fine. And so we also I really lean on my team for that. And a lot of landlords have been open and willing to change their standards because of that.
There was a question specifically with working with sex offenders. I know you guys covered it pretty well, but you know, I don't know if you guys ever do like an introduction with the client before they even apply, to kind of maybe pair the landlord and see, like, on a personal level, is there anything you guys identify with? You know, would you be willing to give this person a chance, or how do you work when it's like a really specific thing like sex offense on their criminal record?
So first, I make sure that the type of background and credit check that the landlord is running, like they're actually going to run that background check. Some landlords, they don't run credit or background checks for everything. They might not run it for, you know, the entire lifespan of that person, or they might. And if they do, I really like to discuss how we can work together and what they are concerned about. So I would ask the landlord, like, what are you concerned about renting to someone that has something like this in their criminal history? And how can we work around that? A lot of our participants are actively working with other community providers or attorneys or someone to assist them in cleaning up their background or how they can counsel themselves moving forward. And so I asked like specifics, like what are you worried about, and how can we kind of ease that anxiety with our team or other community partners?
Right. And there's a couple of questions that have come through about landlord bonuses, so incentive programs, signing bonuses, specifically overcoming the stigma of offering those to landlords. So how are you guys doing that, and how are you ensuring that they're not overused by the same landlords or specific landlords?
As far as use, obviously we have a tracking system to understand who we're paying. And as far the signing bonuses themselves, these funds that we've it's our partners who've kind of received these funds. We've collaborated together, and really they're open to anyone and everyone as long as they can meet those criteria. So obviously we try to focus on new landlords, but also landlords just reducing the barriers for housing. And right now there's no limit on how certain landlords how often they can use it. As long as they're following through with those second two criteria of either reducing the rent below market or reducing the barriers and accepting tenants.
Right. And there was a question that came through about funding this. I know, Trevor, you guys mentioned that you have a program where you do up to 1.5 times the monthly rent amount, I think, for a bonus. And Kara, I don't believe you actually mentioned bonuses in your presentation, but if you guys do have any sort of incentive programs, how are you guys actually funding that, or how's the organization funding that? Is it through SSBF?
Yeah, there are certain counties where we can offer, I guess you could call it a bonus or like a double security deposit. So that does give the landlord an ease of mind of, okay, if this participant loses their job, or if they are exited from the program and something happens to their funding, their income, then they at least have that last month's rent. But so we could call it bonuses, but it is funded through our SSBF grant.
So as far as where they get the funding, so this is the first time that we're trying this the signing bonus, and I believe the money that they got here was from a lot of the CARES Act funding that you could use. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. And then Trevor, I know on y'all's website there is a request for demo for Proud Mission. Is Proud Mission currently available in other communities, or is it just in the state of Arizona?
No, not at all. So it's available everywhere. So I know we already have a couple dozen communities who are already using it within their communities. So yeah, schedule a demo with Mike. He'll be able to take you through it, kind of explain the whole process as far as how to get it implemented within your communities and best practices for use and rollout.
All right, awesome. I'll give you guys a second or two if you want to have any final comments, anything to wrap this up. I want to remind everybody that this webinar was recorded, so that will be available. Also, I will post a link here in just a second, which has a file folder where you can download NCHB's landlord product, where we did some surveying of landlords. We put a couple of guides together about where landlords who want to participate in your programs can go and contact case managers, SSBF, the COC program. So Trevor, Kara, any final words before we head out?
Just express gratitude to your landlords, appreciate them, and then they'll return it in turn.
Yes, I ditto that. The respect definitely, it goes with the case managers, the participants, and the landlords. And just, that professionalism, but also with, bring out your own flair and, work with the landlords and try to figure out what their vision is, and it'll work out. Thank you.
Thank you guys both. I felt like that was a ton of information. If you guys have any questions, any follow-up comments or anything, their contact information was available on the slides. Also, you can always reach out to me at NCHD. Thank you guys all for participating. We'll see you guys next quarter for our next webinar. Have a good afternoon. Bye.